You know what's the worst? Reading slumps. How do you get out of one? What do you do? Will it ever end? Hopefully these tips and tricks will help you get out of a reading slump. Or if you feel a reading slump coming on, maybe these tips will help you to avoid it altogether. How amazing would that be? Hello everyone. Hey, I am here to talk all about reading slumps. The dreaded foe of the reader is reading slumps. We all get them. I know, I said I could help you avoid them, but let's be honest. Everybody's gonna face a reading slump once in their life, probably multiple times if you are a reader, like an avid reader at that. Like I'd say probably at least once a year for me. There's always gonna be a slump and it happens, but these are tips to help you get out of that slump. Maybe you feel a slump coming on, you feel one coming towards you like a freaking train. Hopefully these tips will help you to kind of swiftly get out of the way of that train and that slump and just never look at it again. Tips aren't going to be anything new. I feel like a lot of people use the same tips and I think they are very valid tips. Every person has different tricks to get out of them as well. These are just mine that I abide by and that help me, and they might not necessarily help you. So just take these with a grain of salt. Maybe these will help you out, maybe not. Either way, I hope you enjoy them. First tip or trick, and I always use it, is to try different formats. And what does that mean is that, say you are a physical book reader, which 99% of the time I am. I read physical books and I get in slumps sometimes, and what helps me is trying a different format. Whether that be an audiobook, whether it be a genre that I don't even touch, like graphic novels, I consider that a different format. Manga, an ebook, whatever way is a different format to you. Say that you're an audiobook reader. I have a friend that reads a lot of audiobooks and I know she probably gets burned out a lot, so she probably tries a different format of books to kind of get out of that slump. I'd say different formats are a great way. Audiobooks in particular, I think, are your saving grace for slumps. I just find them so easy to get immersed in. There is a whole slew of amazing audiobooks out there that I think could be great for getting out of your slump. Some of my favorite ones, in case you're wondering, are I've Got Your Number by Sophie Kinsella. The Illuminati Files were great as audiobooks. Daisy Jones and the Six is a phenomenal audiobook. You by Carolyn Kepnes is a phenomenal audiobook. I just find audiobooks are easier, especially when you're in a slump. You can just listen to them in your car, on your commute, whether you ride a train, a bike, whatever you do, be safe. But audiobooks are just, I think, a different format and just kind of get you out of your bubble of just physically reading a book. My second tip is to reread your favorites. I also abide by this tip a ton. This can also be combined with tip number one. I listen to audiobooks when I feel like a funk coming on, and I also always listen to Harry Potter. So that's not only rereading, I'm also reading in a different format. So it's like 2 for 1, if you will. I think those are great ways to get out of your slumps, to reread a book that you already know that you love and fell in love with. I do this a lot when I feel a slump on, and I don't even necessarily have to read the whole book, just maybe snippets of it or just the first half, and I just get my love of reading back and I'm like, oh, I feel like I could start another book again. Just try that. I'd say rereading books that you've already loved and fell in love with are a great way to kind of get you out of that slump that you've been feeling for a while, and to help you avoid it as well. Number 3 is to not be afraid to DNF. And what does DNF mean? It means did not finish. So in case you have started a book and you're like 100 pages in and you are struggling so freaking much with that book, it is time to put that book down, my friend. Do not push yourself through it, because otherwise you're gonna, number 1, hate the book more than you already do, and number 2, it's gonna push you into a zone of reading that you don't want. You don't want to be reading at all after you finish this book that you really had to force yourself to read. Why would you want to read anymore after you forced this book that you hated, that you had to finish? Now, DNF does not have to mean that you do not finish it forever. Maybe it's not the right book for you right now. It could be the right book for you in a month, or maybe in a year, or maybe it's not going to be right for you forever. Who knows? But the point is that if you're reading a book and you are really struggling with it, unless you are 50 pages away from the end, let it go. It's not worth it. I say this because I've done this a lot and it has put me in slumps. I can name a book in particular when I first started my channel that put me to slump because I pushed myself to read it so much, and that book was Beautiful Creatures, in case you're wondering. Everybody was reading it, the movie was just coming out, and I had tried reading it 3 times before I finally finished it and forced myself to finish it, and I just couldn't read a book for 3 weeks after that because of how much I hated it and how much I had to force myself to finish it. So for me, if you're halfway through a book and you're really like 0% not enjoying it at all, time to let it go. If you're like pretty interested and you're like, I think I could keep reading this, but it needs to get better, give it 50 or so pages. If it's still not picking up for you, set it aside for now. Maybe come back to it later. Either way, don't be afraid to DNF. You don't have to be a perfect reader. You don't have to finish every single book that you start. There have been many DNF books I've done, and that is okay. That's how it is, a reader. Not every book is going to be right for you right now. So don't be afraid of DNF. If you finish a book you hate, it's going to put you in a slump. You're going to hate reading after it because you force yourself to read it. So just don't be afraid to put that book down and find a different one. My fourth tip is to buddy read, and what this means is to find a friend, whether it be in person or online, and buddy read a book with. I find this great for just reading in general, honestly, and if you're in a slump, because you're reading with somebody that you know, somebody that you can talk to a lot about while you're reading the book. I think it's great for a slump because you can do a chapter a day, especially because you can just tell your friend, hey, I'm getting out of a slump or I'm in a slump, so we can do a chapter a day, and then you could talk about the chapter in detail, and maybe that'll spark up some love for you for the reading and things like that, and you get excited. You know, every time I buddy read a book with a friend or friends, I get so excited after finishing like that today's section and then talking about it to them and just hearing their thoughts, and just gets you in a conversation about the book, and it gets you really in depth, and it's just really nice. Honestly, I would highly recommend joining a buddy read. I know there's a ton of like book clubs on Goodreads and readathons that have a particular book. I think those are great ways to get into it, or find a friend or friends that want to read the same book as you and just do it. I think it's a great way to help you get out of that slump because you're talking to people about it, and you can voice your dislike for the book, or you can voice your likes about the book, whatever you want to do. Last tip, that's right, there's only 5 of these, is to embrace the slump. It's okay to be in a book slump. There is no perfect reader that has never experienced a book slump in their life. It happens. Every reader, it's gonna happen at some point or another. Whether it be 50 or 5, it's gonna happen eventually, believe you me. I've been through plenty of slumps. I feel like I go through one I'd say probably 1 to 2 every year. There's always like a point where I'm just like, it's hard for me to read a month. And slumps could happen, it doesn't really have a time frame of slumps. It could be a 3-week slump. For me, a slump is like more than a week because I read quite often. If I don't read in like a week, that's a slump to me. And I've had those a lot of times. Trust you me. Don't think I'm a perfect reader by any means because I read a lot. No, slumps happen to any and every reader, and it's okay. There are times where I'm really upset about the slump and I'm like, I'm letting this defeat me and I hate reading, I hate everything. But then other times I'm like, it's okay to have a slump. It's okay to have a break from reading. It's healthy. It's normal. It's okay. Let it run its trajectory, and you'll find yourself in love with books once again. Whether the time span of that, I can't tell you. You only know, and you never really know, honestly, as weird as that sounds. Just embrace the slump. It's okay to have slumps. Every reader has them, and it's 100% okay. So those are all of my tips and tricks to avoid a reading slump or to get out of a reading slump. I hope you got something out of it. You may have, you may have not. You've probably heard of all these tips before, but they all work for me, and I use these every single month, honestly. I use at least one of them. I DNF books, once a month probably. I buddy read a lot, as much as I can. I do a lot of these tips myself because I feel like they really help out, and I truly stand by them. So if you have any tips or tricks to get out of a reading slump or to avoid the reading slump, please leave them down below because I would love to hear them, because I'm always looking for new tricks, because the reading slump monster knocks on my door quite regularly and I want to ignore him and push him away forever. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.